The music stopped the moment the church doors swung open. Every guest turned. The groom looked confused. The bride froze. Standing at the entrance was a man wearing a dark coat, his face marked by a faint scar, his eyes locked on hers as if 10 years had never passed. She dropped her bouquet. Her lips trembled. "It can't be," she whispered, because the man standing there wasn't just an old lover. He was Ethan Carter, the man whose funeral she'd cried through 5 years earlier, the man everyone believed had died in a mountain rescue mission. And now, he was walking toward her wedding. No one knew why he'd returned. No one knew what he wanted. But before he reached the altar, he spoke 7 quiet words that shattered every promise she'd made. "I never stopped coming back for you." Emily Parker had spent years convincing herself that grief could become routine. She lived in Seattle, where rainy mornings somehow matched the ache she'd carried inside since she was 26. Back then, she had been deeply in love with Ethan Carter. Ethan wasn't wealthy. He wasn't famous. He worked as a wilderness rescue pilot, flying into storms most people ran from. Emily often joked that he rescued strangers for a living and forgot to protect his own heart. He would laugh and kiss her forehead. "I always know where home is." Home was Emily. They met by accident in a bookstore cafe. Emily had reached for the last blueberry muffin at the exact same time Ethan did. He smiled. "You can have it." "No," she laughed. "Split it?" That single conversation became dinner. Dinner became long walks. Long walks became dreams. Within 2 years, they were planning a wedding near the ocean. Life felt beautifully ordinary, until the mission that changed everything. A small plane had disappeared over the Cascade Mountains during a violent snowstorm. Ethan volunteered without hesitation. Before leaving, he hugged Emily tightly. "If I'm late," he teased, "save me some coffee." She rolled her eyes. "You'd better come home." "I always do." But that time, he didn't. 3 days later, search teams found wreckage, pieces of the rescue helicopter. No survivors, no body, only Ethan's wedding ring recovered beneath the snow. The authorities declared everyone aboard dead. Emily's world collapsed. Months turned into years. She tried therapy, she moved apartments, she changed jobs. Nothing erased the sound of his last promise. "I always come home." Eventually, life demanded she keep living. That's when Noah Bennett entered her world. Noah was kind in quiet ways. He remembered birthdays. He fixed things without being asked. He never tried replacing Ethan. Instead, he patiently accepted that Emily carried invisible scars. One evening, after nearly 3 years together, Noah gently asked, "Do you think your heart still has room for tomorrow?" Emily looked at him for a long moment. "I think I'm finally ready to stop living in yesterday." He smiled. Then he proposed. She said yes. Not because she had forgotten Ethan, because she believed Ethan was gone, and because Noah deserved someone willing to build a future instead of mourning the past. Months later, family and friends filled a beautiful stone church overlooking Puget Sound. The flowers were white roses, the sunlight poured through stained glass windows. Emily walked toward Noah with tears of gratitude. For the first time in years, peace felt possible. Then the doors opened, and the impossible walked inside. Gasps echoed through the church. Emily's knees nearly gave out. "Ethan?" He nodded slowly. "It's me." Noah stepped forward. "You need to leave." But Ethan wasn't looking at him. His eyes never left Emily. "I know this is the worst possible moment," he said quietly. "But if I waited another minute, I'd lose you forever." Silence filled the church. Emily felt as though time had split in half. 5 years of grief, 5 years of healing, 5 years of believing she had buried the love of her life. Now he stood breathing in front of her. She could barely speak. How? Ethan swallowed hard. The helicopter crashed. I survived. Confused whispers spread through the guests. I was trapped deep in a remote valley. My head injury erased most of my memory. Local hikers found me weeks later across the Canadian border. I spent years recovering under another identity because I couldn't remember my own. Emily stared at him. You never called. I couldn't. Not until 6 months ago. His voice cracked. My memories came back little by little. Your laugh, our apartment, the coffee shop, your face. He reached into his pocket. Inside was a faded photograph, the two of them smiling beneath a lighthouse. I searched everywhere. Emily's hands shook. I found out about your wedding yesterday. Tears rolled down her face. Everything she'd spent years rebuilding suddenly felt fragile. Noah quietly approached her. He wasn't angry, only heartbroken. I need to ask you something, he said gently. If Ethan hadn't walked through that door, would you have married me? Emily looked into his eyes. Yes. He nodded. And now? She couldn't answer, because she didn't know. The minister suggested postponing the ceremony. Guests slowly left, whispering in disbelief. Only Emily, Noah, and Ethan remained. Outside, rain began falling softly across the church steps. Emily asked Ethan the question she'd buried for years. Did you ever stop loving me? Not for one day. She turned toward Noah. He looked exhausted. I always knew I'd never compete with a ghost, he admitted. I just never expected the ghost to come back alive. The words broke something inside her. That evening, Emily met Ethan at the old waterfront where they'd shared countless sunsets. Everything felt familiar, yet strangely distant. The man standing beside her looked like Ethan, sounded like Ethan, loved her like Ethan, but life had changed both of them. He spoke softly. I know I'm asking for something impossible. You are. I don't expect yesterday to return. Emily watched the waves. I mourned you. I rebuilt myself without you. You became part of my memories, not my future. Ethan closed his eyes. I understand. For the first time since his return, neither of them spoke. The silence held years of love and years of loss. The next morning, Emily visited Noah. He was packing away wedding decorations. Seeing him alone hurt more than she expected. I'm sorry, she whispered. He smiled sadly. You don't owe me an apology for loving someone. I never wanted to hurt you. I know. He took a deep breath. But love isn't choosing the safest person. It's choosing the one your heart refuses to leave. Emily cried. So, this is goodbye? He nodded. I deserve someone who chooses me without hesitation, and you deserve the chance to discover whether Ethan is still your future or only your past. Months passed. Emily and Ethan didn't rush back into romance. Instead, they started over. Coffee, walks, honest conversations. They talked about trauma, about guilt, about the years they'd lost. Sometimes they laughed, sometimes they cried, sometimes silence said enough. Love, they realized, wasn't frozen in time. It had to grow again. One autumn evening, Ethan brought Emily back to the same bookstore cafe where everything had begun. There was one blueberry muffin left. He smiled. Want to split it? She laughed through happy tears. I was hoping you'd ask. This time, there were no promises about forever, no perfect speeches, just two people who had survived impossible heartbreak, choosing each other one ordinary day at a time. Because real love isn't measured by how perfectly life unfolds. It's measured by the courage to begin again after everything has fallen apart. And sometimes, the greatest miracle isn't that someone comes back from the dead, it's that two hearts, broken by time, still find the strength to beat together again.